Good evening, good morning, good night, whatever the time is, wherever the sun is rising or setting. Very, very warm greetings from a wintry evening in the capital of India. It gives me great pleasure to host the grand finale of a marathon virtual, first of its kind conference held by Amity University Online. And it gives me great pleasure to have my very, very close friends, Dr. Emmy and Dr. Angela. What started with Dr. Emmy, it is work in progress with Dr. Angela, with me as common factor between both of them. More storytelling after we hear from both my great panelists, and I'm especially proud of this at the moment all women panelists, though we will soon be joined by great gentlemen in our organization. So this session, this grand finale session, is all about tomorrow, paving a way for a new tomorrow in the online education ecosystem. I love the word ecosystem, Angela and Emmy, because whatever ripple effect that you and me or each one of us have done today, it will turn into a tsunami in coming years, because that is the finale that, or the legacy that each one of us are dreaming of. So without eating more time of this particular exciting session, let me introduce our first speaker, Dr. Angela. Dr. Angela Gunder is Chief Academic Officer and Vice President of Learning for the Online Learning Consortium, OLC, where I met her. In this role, she's responsible for gathering, curating, and leveraging the intellectual capital created by and disseminated through OLC. She is an associate director for the Teacher Education Board of Merlot and the recipient of 2018 Merlot Distinguished Service Award, the organization's highest honor. I'm not surprised, Angela. Prior to her position at the OLC, Angela served as the Director of Instructional Design and Curriculum Development for the Office of Digital Learning. So, Angela, what is the future like according to you? So over to you. Over to you.
I love that question so much, and I'm just going to share my screen to talk a little bit about my lens on where we're going. But I really situate and see this as an invitation and a call to action for all of us to work together to pave that future. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But thank you so much for that warm welcome. As Dr. Priya Mary shares, I'm Angela. I am the Chief Academic Officer for the Online Learning Consortium, and we're a nonprofit organization that supports educators around the globe with online, blended, and digital learning that centers on quality. And on behalf of the Online Learning Consortium, I'd like to express our thanks to the many individuals who helped to bring together this event, the Amity Global Online Education Conference, with special thanks to my friend and my colleague, Dr. Priya Mary, for including myself and also the OLC in this amazing experience. So I was so delighted to find out that the focus of this panel was on paving a way for a new tomorrow. I love that word ecosystem as well, that we're all working and thriving within that space. And in telling my story and the story of the OLC that contributes in terms of transforming digital learning through quality, equity, and engagement, I thought that the best way to do that would be to tell a brief story that has had a profound impact on my own work and my life. So back in 2019, which feels like ages ago, based on all of the things that we've done, all of the challenges that we faced in the pandemic and beyond, I was in China in 2019 for a work trip, and I was fortunate to spend a few days in Tokyo with family and friends. And on my last day there, I set off to visit the world's first digital art museum that was created by a group called Team Labs. And on the train ride there, it was just me and my husband. My husband grew ill and he had to leave suddenly, but he implored that I still go because he knew that it was an experience that I'd been really longing to enjoy. So I went reluctantly, and I went to the museum by myself. I packed all of my belongings into a locker, including my shoes, my wallet, my passport, and I entered the exhibit completely on my own with just a phone as my guide through the space. The museum had all sorts of different digital experiences that were connected by dark hallways that you can see on the screen here. And the paths were barely illuminated. And I was one of very few non-Japanese speakers that were in the museum. And moving through the space made me feel ashamed that I hadn't taken the time to learn not only the language, but how to better connect with the people around me and to better navigate the space. One of the early rooms in the exhibit was called Soft Black Hole. You can see it here. And it required you to traverse a space where the floor was really a 4-foot deep foam mattress. And each step that you took into the floor displaced the people around you. And if you had no one to lean on, like I did, you found yourself struggling and falling while those around you moved forward. And when I was in the space, I questioned whether I should have come in the first place and how I'd get out of the space at all. Even months later, and still almost 2 years later, I couldn't shake that experience. And at the beginning of the pandemic, this memory took new meaning. I watched as the world collectively entered into foreign spaces with little light to guide them. And that really haunted me because I knew that so many students and teachers alike were being thrust into new teaching and learning environments without the time, the resources, and the support to feel like they had the ability to move and to make it through, just like me in that room, or even get out as they barely move forward. When we look at the future of online learning, we know that we need to innovate in our methods, but that innovation is only successful if they're inclusive of all people moving through the space and not just one or two. And creating inclusive spaces for learning really starts from the design of the learning environment specifically. So though there are many ways, many pathways and conduits to building a culture of care and transformation that is inclusive and allows everybody to be successful in moving through the space, I wanted to just take a brief minute to talk about 3 specific dimensions that have been particularly impactful in my work at the OLC and in my colleagues' work across the globe. And they're the practices of building on a foundation of quality, centering equity in course design, and creating authentic points of engagement. And I have some resources that I'll share with you on the Hubaloo chat as soon as I'm done speaking and sharing. So in the same way that a translation of language serves as an approximation of the original content, when you take experiences from the face-to-face environment and just simply map them to digital environments one-to-one, you create barriers of access, understanding, and connection. And the pandemic made this very apparent with our students and our teachers facing issues of fatigue, with limited access and bandwidth, and feeling anxiety and exclusion over determining safe and quiet spaces for them to log in, to access content, to even turn on cameras and phones and microphones. So when I think about, one of the real ways that we can make sure that we're building that access, it starts from building from quality. And that includes working from quality frameworks that can help to anticipate those issues of access in the design of courses, allowing us to build learning experiences that are inclusive of all learner challenges and goals. And I offer a resource here. I'll put this link in the chat in a little bit. This is the OLC Quality Scorecard Suite, which offers free assessment tools for looking at the quality of course design, of teaching, of student support, and digital courseware, as well as specific tools for blended courses, as well as fully online programs. The second dimension is centering equity, and I want to mention that we really want to build learning experiences that are supportive of the complexity of the lives of our students, and that requires that we reflect, design, and facilitate learning experiences that center care. If you're new to centering online learning in equity, I'd like to recommend first Every Learner Everywhere, which is a network that's funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and the OLC is one of 12 partners of Every Learner Everywhere. We've written 8 equity principles as a beautiful framing for inclusion in digital learning environments, and it's a great place to start. And then next, I encourage you to examine the uses of technology and systems within digital learning environments using a free tool like the Peralta Equity Rubric, which was developed to help educators look at implicit bias, representation, and student support in digitally mediated environments. And last, for a comprehensive look at creating learning spaces that value people, I encourage you to download the Caring for Students Playbook, which is a free resource on operationalizing equity-focused teaching strategies. And one of the other authors of the Caring for Students Playbook was a speaker that you heard earlier, Dr. Mahabali, and many other colleagues helped to put that together as a roadmap and a guide to a future of digital learning that is more inclusive. Lastly, I ask you to consider what it means to remix your own teaching and learning practices to create an engaging space where students feel empowered. And 2 practices that have been compelling for me have been making my syllabi open and annotatable, such that rules and policies become a way for building community, making meaning collectively, and determining which practices will best support students uniquely. And you may hear people referring to this as an interactive syllabus or a liquid syllabus, and it serves as a way to turn didactic and a lecture into a supportive conversation. And additionally, several of my colleagues and I have explored the concept of rooting digital course design around the notion of the student as an epic hero in a journey. And through course mapping tools, games, and other resources, we pushed against this notion that faculty are the only way to move students along a path to an intended outcome. So in this case, the student becomes the driver of their journey to a determined goal. And this practice, though mapped to an online environment, supports constructivist student-centered learning in any modality. So before I conclude this intro to creating inclusive pathways into our digital learning futures, I want to finish my story about the Digital Art Museum. So though I was discouraged and lonely initially, I did make it through the room that limited my mobility and really made me question myself. And through the generosity of strangers and nonverbal communication, I realized that I was not alone, that I could call on others to help me, and that I was stronger than I'd felt in that moment of weakness. And through room after room, these feelings grew stronger and took me to a seemingly blocked room that you can see on the screen of giant plastic orbs. At first, I tried to push my way through, but met resistance by others doing the same, and we were all stuck in the room. But then I discovered that if I quickly connected with those around me and helped them to clear their path, my own path would clear before me as well. And I made it to the exit in this way, but I relished the time and the work making new connections and new paths, that I stayed in the room longer just to explore and help others out. And it's where I found myself in my work right now at the OLC as well, that I'd rather stay and commit to creating space for the agency and autonomy of all learners, rather than just leave those opportunities behind. So with that, I thank each of you for letting me share a little bit of my own journey with the OLC and paving new pathways, and know that I honor each of you for the unique pathways that you continue to make by walking. Thank you.
Thank you for that rocking presentation, as usual. Inclusive, energetic, playful, gamified, open syllabi, so many keywords. I'm going to ask a little bit more on that. But
Excellent.
Before that, let me now introduce to you my guru, Dr. Emmy. She's the one who introduced me to transform or to transit from traditional teacher to a blended teacher, and then on to 100% online teacher. Thank you, Emmy, for your contribution in my life. Let me introduce Dr. Emmy Hilberlink. Serves as the Vice Chancellor of Online Operations at South College, where she is responsible for overall online admissions, student support, and program development for a rapidly growing online presence. She served as Executive Director for Strategic Partner Initiatives within AMIA region for Laureate International Education. AMI's responsibilities included advising and consulting with academic campus partners, and that's where I came in, on innovative approaches to hybrid, blended, and fully online learning solutions. There's so much that you can share, Emmy, to this audience. And Angela and Emmy, I have to inform you, 60% of the audience are from India, and it's 6:45 p.m. in India. And hold your breath, rest of them are from outside India. Now look at the power of drawing in audience who are curious. This is a very serious topic, and people who want to know will come if they know where to tune in. So over to you, Dr. Amy.
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's lovely to be here. I am honored and I'm humbled. I really am. All those wonderful things that you just said about me, it's amazing. And sitting here with Dr. Angela is wonderful. It's great fun. And it's like we could spend the whole weekend chatting and getting caught up. But I know we have a brief time together, and I want to share just a little bit about where I've come from, what I see in the future. And again, I can't say that any of this is, obviously it's my vision. It's my vision. So let me just say it's not necessarily fact, it's my vision. Let me stop for a second so I can open up this deck a little bit clearer. Yeah, here we go. Is that opening up enough, or do I need to open it up further?
I think it looks good.
Can you see it? Okay.
Yeah, we see it in presenter view, but it looks great.
Yeah. Let me just do from the beginning. Hopefully that works. There we go.
Yes.
All right.
Yes,
so
yes.
Wonderful. I finally got it. Technology. We love it and we hate it. So again, I'm honored to be here. I wanted to just share briefly a little bit about my background, where I began. I didn't get my doctorate until later in life. I got it in 2007, which seems a long time ago, but again, it was later in life. And once I got that doctorate, it was really interesting for me because it changed my whole focus on the world, because we were looking, my degree was in instructional technology, online learning, curriculum and instruction. Once I got that degree, it was really unique because I didn't look at traditional institutions for work because I wasn't available to move for work. So I began doing online education, online learning, and I moved into a lot of for-profit institutions, large and small, and also private institutions. I began working in a number of different places, which just gave me the opportunity to see how things were done in the world of online learning all over the US initially. And then I became a member of the Laureate Network, as Dr. Priya just mentioned, where we met. And I traveled all over the EMEA region, Asia, Middle East, Pan-Asia, South Africa, India, some in Europe. But what I found were so many commonalities between how we approached education. And as Dr. Priya mentioned earlier, part of my responsibility was to work with a lot of different institutions and help them look at different ways of managing their curriculum and moving courses that were face-to-face to online or to a blended format to try to help them understand that they could engage more students more broadly, increase their footprint, if you will, the area that they have impact for the students, and try to be more creative in their approaches with their curriculum. So for me, it was very eye-opening. I met so many wonderful people and I traveled all over, but there were just so many commonalities, which I'll get to here in a second. Currently, I do work at the South College campus. I'm campus president as well as the Vice Chancellor for Online Operations, which just means I oversee that whole campus and all the admissions and the student support. And we're just getting up and going. We have about 2,000 students, which is a great start. And we're adding a physical campus as well with blended learning for health sciences fields. So it's quite exciting. I just wanted to go over some of the things that I understand about online today. Now, I've been in this field for over 20 years. And even for me, there's just so much going on. Look at the massive amounts of money that are expected to be within the online realm by 2026, 374 billion, that's USD. That's an amazing figure. What that's done is brought a lot of individuals to this field to try to figure out different ways of helping our students learn. I will say that the state of online today, I think online is often still considered less than. And this is a commonality, whether you're in India, whether you're in the United States, whether you're in South Africa. A lot of folks still consider online less than, which is interesting considering the pandemic that we have all just experienced and continue to experience, how that has changed our approach to online learning. But as many of us know who are in the field, many of the online experiences that came out of that just weren't appropriate and weren't effective for our students. So we still have a little bit of work to do on moving online into the realm of just as equal or better than traditional. We know learners want online. Most learners we know are within 50 miles of their campus. So even if they go to the campus, they want to be able to go online when they want to go online. They need to have flexibility. So schools are struggling with this. How do you get the students on campus, but yet you want to give them what they want, which is online? And many schools are struggling with what this is going to look like. There's so many startups. We could spend the weekend talking about the startups and the mergers. There are so many mergers taking place. There were just a few this past week with MC and Burning Glass. OPMs, online program managers, are proliferating. We all know this, and particularly in the US. I'm not quite sure what they're doing in India, but they are at massive scale here in the US and only getting bigger. Obviously, we're working remotely, which is a challenge for workers. It's a challenge for companies. It's a challenge for institutions. How are we going to educate these folks? And obviously there's tons of opportunity. So for me, it seems almost a little bit chaotic. Like there's a common root to this, but we have gone off in so many different tangents, which can be very exciting, but very confusing at the same time. If you're just entering this field as a faculty or as a student, it's a little challenging, right? We don't know quite where to turn. And so I liked what Dr. Priya mentioned earlier about the ripples and the tsunami, and we're a drop in the water. But I think the reason I use this image is because in the future, and currently now, Dr. Angela mentioned this as well. I think she called students as epic heroes in a journey. I see it the same way. Students must be in the center of everything we're doing. I think that will help us ground ourselves in this field. I think it will help us understand some of the new technologies that are coming out, and helping those that are coming out with new technologies focus those technologies on the students in the middle. We have to rethink the learning experience. We have to stop thinking of learning only happening in the classroom. We know that it's happening all around us. We know it's happening in the workplace. It's happening out where students are socializing together. There's learning happening all the time. And Dr. Angela's experience in that darkened room with the softened floor, there's learning taking place. We have to be aware of these things and just take those in and think of different ways of helping our students get to the information that they need. We have to have more skills-based learning. We're moving forward with that in the US, really looking at the skills students actually need to be successful in the workplace, and creating courses and content with MC, Burning Glass, looking at the skills the students will need to be successful. I think there's going to be a difference in the OPMs. I'm not saying they're not going to be around. I do think they're going to change. The online program managers have a lot of control over institutions that they work with. I think we're seeing mergers now. U2 and EDX just happened this past week. Those OPMs are going to change quite a bit on how they serve institutions and how institutions expect them to serve the students. So again, we're looking at interdisciplinary approaches, which I do want to touch on. In the past and currently, when you walk onto a traditional campus, you see the business school over there. You see the health sciences building over there. You see the creative arts over there. They're separate. They're built in different buildings. I think in the future, we're going to move to more interdisciplinary approaches to education. We know clearly that business-minded individuals also must be creative. And we know that those in the health sciences should have business backgrounds or some touch of business experience. So I think we're going to see more of that, and it kind of goes back to the skills-based learning. What do students really need? And we have to stop thinking about what we need and how we build the infrastructure. What do the students need? We're going to increase efficiencies, more mobile learning, more competition for online learners. It's only going to get more difficult. As we know, there are lower enrollments right now, but there are a lot of students who still need our help. So there's going to be more mergers and affiliations as individual institutions who cannot support themselves with the traditional students are likely going to merge with other institutions that have a bigger student body, or we will share students, right, across institutions, which is something that the Laureate Network Office was working on as well. Having students we had students from Thailand working with students in India on courses in the same course, on the same content, collaborating between countries on different activities. We'll see much more of that. Younger students are moving online. The ages are dropping for online students. It used to be our adult learners. Obviously, the young students want it as well. We have to provide. And this is only a hope that we will have free Wi-Fi everywhere, I will say. That's one of my big hopes for the future. Obviously, there will be impacts on faculty. Faculty may have to learn new technologies, new skills, how to engage with their students in different ways. So we have to, again, think away from the classroom and think, how can I make this content, this concept make sense for that student? We have to be much more creative as faculty. There are going to be different workloads that you'll have to manage in the classroom. That's always challenging. It's not going to stop. And more co-creation of content, which kind of takes place doesn't take the place of OPMs, but more institutions, I think, are going to recognize that they do have the skill sets here in-house to make these creative, engaging experiences with the student in the middle. And again, just more opportunities for creativity across the board as we move forward. And I just wanted to end with this quote that I found just recently online from Paul Silvergate. We were impacted by so much over the past year or two, and we had innumerable roadblocks that we had to overcome. But we do need to celebrate the individuals that made it happen for our students, that made it happen for our learners. And in that, we're all together here in the same environment. So again, thank you so much for having me here. I'm honored and I'm humbled, and I'm going to open it up to Dr. Priya.
Thank you, Emmy. Thank you so much. I would like to present a video from Dr. Joe, which we couldn't play in the morning. It's a short 8-minute video. And while he made the video for making us understand how international education is just a touch away, and that was the title of the presentation, I thought whatever ideas he has given, it really fits paving the way for future. So give me a moment to share my screen. And if one of you can tell me that you can hear it.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Joseph Lustio. I'm the Executive Vice President and Chief Operating Officer at Amity University, a fully online graduate institution in Southern California. It's a great honor to be here at the Amity Global Online Education Conference. And I'm really excited to talk to you all today about what trends I've seen in higher education online and what's happening across the globe. The title of this session is International Studies, Now at the Touch of a Button. There has never been anything more true than the fact that accessing higher education has been made easier than ever before. So let's talk about the current state of higher education. The value of a college degree is being questioned. That's something that we all must come to terms with as higher ed administrators. There are many online universities across the globe today, many that didn't start out that way, but certainly have added online as a component of COVID. But one of the biggest global phenomenons right now is the question of whether you need a college degree to be successful in life. That's a challenge from the public and something that online higher education administrators must contend with. There's a hypersensitive consumer behavior model happening right now, partly because of coronavirus, partly because of risk and risk tolerance, partly because of debt and students unwilling to take on huge debt loads in order to achieve a college degree, partially because of what's happening in as competition is heated up. There's just more sensitivity. Students are really wondering, is this right for me right now? What do I have going on?
Dr. Priya, I think we might have lost the audio for Joe. We can still see the slides, but the sound is gone.
Deliver the online education experience.
It's back, thank you.
There is exponential competition, and this is really a key. We talk about that every school has embraced some level of online learning. That is absolutely true. Now, some schools are using it as a primary way to expand. Some schools are using it as a way to offer emergency education if they've gone back to on ground. But one way or another, every school has experimented with or is keeping online learning.
Okay. Looks like we have an audio issue. Okay. So I think we will upload it in the system later. Okay, Angela and Emmy, you can come back and we will take some questions here. Before that, I would like to share one screen. Where is it gone? Okay, so I will set that up. There is a question from our participant, and that's specifically from Africa. A number of issues arise regarding harmonizing education content, digitalization of education content, and delivery. Will these three dimensions help address the issues, Dr. Angela? And also, how are we going to help reduce the digital divide issues in Africa? And digital divide is not just an issue in Africa. Even in India, there are acute digital access issues. So I think we should take opinion from both of you on that. But over to you first, Angela, and then yeah.
Thank you. And I would add, Dr. Priya, that particularly in the pandemic, I think that we within the United States learned that we had a very different understanding of the digital divide, even in the United States, that we thought we were much further along than we actually were. And when we were required to all move online, we had many, many students who were in rural areas, students who were in urban areas, but did not have access to computers other than the ones in their universities, who were left behind. And that digital divide issue is prevalent across the globe and remains a challenge. I'll answer that back part first about the digital divide. I think that we've really approached, and I talked about this when I said, innovation is only useful if it's attending to all of our learners and not just a privileged few. We have to look at the learning spaces that where we're building experiences for. A lot of the learning, as Dr. Amy mentioned, is happening in informal settings, is happening on mobile devices, particularly in Africa. We've seen folks transform curriculum such that a computer is not necessary, that if folks only have a cell phone, they're able to engage. But that changes our thinking around how we're building out courses from the beginning. And that's what really connects to those three dimensions, is that when we talk about building quality online learning and we talk about building with the outcomes in mind, we can't use our preconceived notions for where that learning can occur. We can't keep on repeating and even translating the things that we do in a face-to-face classroom. We have to actually think about the students that are in front of us within our own context and how they can get to the classroom wherever that can occur. And using those three dimensions has really helped us within our work in the Online Learning Consortium, because what that's done is that has allowed us to look at local context specific decisions that need to be made about not only online courses, but how those programs work together, what instructional technology is used, what's even available, and most importantly, how the students best choose to learn. They have preferences, they have unique goals and experiences, and we have to build with that in mind first, as opposed to either copying, translating, or even using the same methods that we've been using for prior. It's a scary space for us to be in, but it's one of those areas where we know that by sharing examples, by sharing stories of how we've been able to create better access points to education across different contexts. And this conference is a great example of that, where you have many people from India, but you also have great representation across the world. This is the space where we can start to talk about not only the things that we've been successful in, but the challenges that we're having within each of our contexts, such that we can create those gaps, or we can address those gaps and create bridges to new approaches together, as opposed to in isolation.
Thank you, Angela. Emmy?
Yeah.
Well, I would just piggyback a little bit and say, yes, one of my comments about free Wi-Fi everywhere, wouldn't that go a long way to solve this concern? We are bumping up against this constantly, this digital divide. And I think one of the ways to think about it is to continue to bring it up in conversations. I think people just, if you're not talking about it, you forget about it. And you forget about those students who need access. Right. So when we're in those rooms talking about curriculum and talking about how this is going to work, we have to be thoughtful about how the students are going to access, where the students are. I know in South Africa, it was an issue for students who did not have that access once they left campus. So we had to rethink how we uploaded the content, but provided it to students so they could download it, take it home, read it, then come back to campus. So again, just keeping it top of mind, keeping it out in the conversation.
Okay, talking about digital divide, thank you for those answers. I have some real-time data. Can you all see this?
It's coming, not yet. There we go, yes.
Yes. So last week we had Festival of Lights 2 weeks ago in India. And we asked our students to send us Diwali greetings, and we used Padlet and look at where all we got wishes from. There is a student in almost the entire continent, the entire world. And when I zoomed it a bit, I could actually, especially in India, I could actually see the digital divide, you know. So inclusivity, it's one of the favorite theme of almost every international friend, online friend that I have. And I had a very serious discussion on this with Dr. Angela and other peers in the OLC program. How or what more can be done, Angela and Emmy, to create inclusivity? But before you answer, let me welcome Professor Abhinash Kumar, who is Director, ADDOE, with us. He would put on his camera when he speaks. Could you answer that question, inclusivity, not only for digital divide, but there are so many other niche segments or invisible segments, as we call it. So, Angela, and then Emmy.
Absolutely. I'm putting a link in the chat right now to the leadership program that Dr. Priya is referring to. It's called IELOL Global, and it is actually a part of a almost 15-year-long professional development institute that has been available to folks across the globe. But in the past, it had a focus on an immersion where people gathered on site in the United States. And during the pandemic, we were in the process of planning our first international version of IELOL. It was going to be held in Cape Town, South Africa, with our colleagues from the Sub-Saharan African region of universities and associations, SARUA. And we determined that the pandemic proposed an opportunity for us to bring the program online and really lean into the heart of the program, which is how can we be inclusive of diverse perspectives, of all of the dimensions of diversity that are needed in order to address the big challenges that we're facing across the globe, and not just within small pockets of the globe. So this program has evolved over the 2 years that it's been running. In fact, it's just at its end for 2021, and we'll be looking at folks to join us for our next cohort in 2022, as well as join us on site for our first small regional event that we'll be holding in Ghana. And we're very excited about that coming up. But the one big part of the program was that we knew that the challenges that we were facing had to be contextualized to individual regions. And when we would have conversations about inclusiveness, or when we would have conversations about even specific design strategies like UDL, or Universal Design for Learning, we knew that that had different meaning within different regions of the world. And in fact, there were some regions of the globe where that information had not really permeated into the design work that folks were engaging in within universities. So when we think about inclusiveness, it does include accessibility for sure. So any sort of physical challenges that prevent folks from engaging with the content. It can even be emotional challenges that prevent folks from engaging within the content. But we also look at it not from a deficit model of looking at what's wrong with the way that we're designing such that it blocks people, but also how can we create more space? How can we create more room for students to come into the classroom and be able to share all of the things that they know to enrich the online learning environment? We have many learners, as Amy talked about. Dr. Amy shared that our learners are skewing younger and younger within online spaces. They're also skewing older and older on the other side of the segment too. And we also have to be inclusive beyond just institutions of education that are formally recognized within higher ed. There's a lot of informal learning that's happening. There's work that's happening for certifications as well, and workforce development, where you have different populations, different ages, who all bring unique perspectives in the classroom. So when I think about inclusiveness, and I think about it within the way that we're framing it here, Dr. Priya, about what are our learning futures, I think that we need to be better about attending to the dimensions of diversity within inclusiveness, and look at that, before we even open the classroom for folks. How are we building learning experiences, particularly online learning experiences, that honor all of our students, their needs, their goals, their challenges? And what resources and what funding needs to be provided at the administrative level in order to make sure that that happens, because none of that can happen without support from the top down and from the bottom up.
There you go. That's really key. And I just want to say that that's absolutely it. The leadership has to be on board with the direction that you're building. And even if we just take it to a very practical level, Dr. Angela, I think you might agree that when you're creating a course, knowing who your audience is and putting in those quality standards, that we have to consider the diversity of our group, of who we're designing for, right? And that should be right at the base level. Leadership plays the key role, but we have to build it into the courses and give it consideration, which I think oftentimes it is not given.
Yes, leadership is the key, and Professor Abhinash, why don't you come here? Because when I speak of leadership, I can only think of your very eminent contribution towards Amity University Online. He is almost, I would say, the father of online education in India, because Amity University is the first university that got approved by our regulators for online education. Professor Abhinash, if you're there.
Yes, I'm there, but I'm encountering some problem with my camera.
With your camera. Okay, we'll wait.
I'm trying my level best, in fact, to come on the camera, but unfortunately, no. But okay. Yes, I'm there. This has been a commendable session since morning, though marathon. The appropriate word that you have used is marathon. It is actually marathon session. And I was also wondering why Priya has encountered, in fact, she has just done 1 day session, why not 3-4 days session? Because besides marathon, the kind of speaker that we had, I consider it could have been 3 days, nobody would have realized any monotonous or anything in this session. So I wish this would have been for 2 days minimum. Because we delighted to hear every individuals. Also, the kind of exposure that our faculty got in this conference was also remarkable. And believe you me, gentlemen and the ladies, that I never realized, in fact, the ladies predominantly here, I never realized that my faculties are so competent and so nice. So I also, Dr. Priya, thanks to you for getting this opportunity to listen to our faculties, and they were outstanding. I never believed that the potentials are so high, so remarkable. So just
thank
for
you.
your
thank you. And
online education that Priya talked about. Let me tell you I was too young at that point of time when I was asked to join Amity and to introduce a department called distant education. There was a reason behind this. Just for everybody's information, Amity is not only into the universities, but it is a group of institutions, including pre-nursery schools to postdoctoral education institutions. So when I joined, I was called with the different intentions and the motto. I know we had a very, very prominent school called Amity Business School. The student used to come, the parents used to come, and besides, we had the international school also, Amity International School also. So the parents used to come. So the most of the parents, they used to come, they said, we see our kids doing a very competitive educations. They're working very hard to pass their programs, examination, etc. Amity should also think about the mature people, and especially the working people. And with this intention, I was brought because I have little exposure of working in the arena of distant education. And prior to that, I was a faculty and the lecturer in world's one of the leading university called Indira Gandhi Open National University called IGNOU. So I was there for a few years and then shifted to one of the leading institutions. So with that intention, I was brought. So this is the history of the distant education that we initiated. And as I mentioned during my speech also previously, that in year 2006, when the world were trying to devise some kind of technologies to teach students from one part to the other, and which was only possible through e-learning then. There was no concept of online then. So there was a concept called e-learning. So we started working because I must apprise you that Amity's e-learning is as primitive as any other institutions. So we also started thinking rather 2003, we conceptualized some aspects for e-learning, and then since 2006 full-fledged. And in 2007, we got a project from Government of India, where we were one of the premier university to offer this program to African students. So this is, and that made us to get into a full-fledged online education. And then, believe you me, unlike the different part of the world, the university, the regulators of the various countries were not accepting this online technologies and online mode. So we had to convince to the government of India also to consider this mode to offer this. So this was some, we have some very, very unique experience that we had with one of the leading judge of the country of apex court, and he's asked few of us, and including the regulator, that when you last used the fountain pen to write a letter to your colleague or to, for that matter, any of the members. So the judge was very, very, the competent authority from the regulator were very surprised, and he didn't have any answer. So then we were made responsible for creating the formulae, the concept of online education to initiate in the country, India. And we had to work day and night. In fact, we were practicing all these things, but then we had to work day and night for giving some unique concept to Government of India. And finally, it was a big success for the regulator to launch online education regulations to country. Recently, also in the year 2020, the government realized that the mode of teaching for the online education, for the distant education, is more or less the same. And therefore, there should be a unique kind of regulation for both. So there is hardly any distinction for this, except for the examination, modality of examination, and except for, some intake of the students. So with this, the regulations were merged, and we are standing upon the similar regulation for both online and ODL, distant education. Many achievement during our commencement of program, which was initiated way back in the year 2000, and it is exactly 21 years. And many we focused, because what we realized that this program is predominantly for the working people. So we focused upon, creating a curriculum which should be adaptable and convergent to the working people. So we made sure that during our board of study, we'll invite 2 leading members, minimum 2 industry expert, to contribute their view to add in our curriculum. So this is something that was unique that we have done. We have, many tie-ups in between with the industries, with the public sector, with the, corporates, with the government sectors. In fact, we had to go to an extent to help government to create some, online programs for them. Recently, we also did a unique program before this Afghan episode. Way back in the year 2018, rather 2019, we did a country's leading college directors program for 18 days through online, while sitting from here to Afghanistan people, the directors, academicians rather. So this is something that, this kind of achievement that we have originated through this online modality and through distant education, which we consider. And with these efforts, of course, we were one of the very first university in the country to convert to offer online program. Our platform, which we call it Amigo, is one of the very unique, and we had to face a lot of challenges to get this approved through the regulatory authorities. Why? Because in India, there's a concept called SWAM. MOOCs is different terms in India is SWAM. So the first question Dr. Priya was to us, incidentally, then Dr. Priya was not with us. The first question from the regulators and the top educationists, that how can you justify that your platform is at par to SWAM platform? SWAM is the government portal and the platform. So it was such a difficult task for us to convince them that it is at par, and we were quite intelligent in that way to express that we are of course not better, if not parallel also, but we are just trying to achieve it. So this is how that the entire concept of online and the history of online, the history of distant education with Amity is all around. So Priya, I think if you don't stop
Yes.
the faculty or the teacher, then he would be unstoppable. So with this, kindly permit me to
Yes, thank
shut
you.
for this, else I'll keep on talking. So,
thank you, Professor Avinash. This session is about future, but it was a delight to hear that how you started with distance learning and you adopted online learning. When I say you, it really matters that how the leadership, and when I say leadership, the chairperson, the chancellor, everyone behind the organization opened doors for new ideas, for a mindset change. And this very conference, the marathon conference from 9 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. Indian time, with touching experts from Australia to America. We started with Australia, we are ending with America. So from one corner to the other. So I just wanted to show to the world that it is possible. And I'm so happy. I asked our audience, there were 3,000 plus registered audience. Of course, all 3,000 are not active now. So whoever is active, I asked, are you delighted? And did you attend the entire conference or few of it? And 73% of them have chosen delighted, and we attended all the 7 sessions. So is it possible? Is online education possible? Is learning possible? Yes. All that we need is curious mind. I'm not closing. I have to take this special question. How can we deal with special kids using digital device during online teaching, online platform for online learning? Because it becomes difficult to guide and train these special kids during online education. A very sensitive question. I couldn't close without taking up this question. Anyone?
Priya, I think since you have encountered very recently, and
yes.
Since your inception,
Yes.
you are the one who inducted such possibility in the online education, and I think you are the evident, and you have with your efforts in the 7 days time, if not 10 days time, 7 days time, you have managed to deal with such a student. In fact, we have also seen one of your interview with one of the physically challenged student from Dubai, I believe.
Yes.
And the way
BCA student, yes.
When we heard her, she was so encouraged with the kind of initiative that Amity has taken. And the entire credit goes to Dr. Priya for this, because she has worked so hard and and believe you me, because Amity has a different system. You cannot do anything without being permitted by academic councils and the norms. So she has to deal with all such different bodies of the university, and she made it possible. So while you ask this question, rather this question goes to you to answer, and then I'm so delighted.
There's a reason. I'm a storyteller, I'm a director, so I wanted to create the climax. So Professor Abhinay, give me 2 minutes. I know both of them very closely, and I think I know what they'll answer, but still for the sake of the audience, because the question came from audience. Over to you, Angela, first.
Well, this question is very personal to me, and I don't know if Dr. Priya actually knows this, but my younger sister has multiple sclerosis, and it limits her ability to move and to walk, and sometimes even to process information in certain ways. And she wasn't diagnosed until she was older, and she was an elite athlete before that, and a shining student. So it was a big challenge for her when she was navigating through college and beyond. And when I saw this question, I thought about how this question calls out a specific group, but I think all learners are special learners and we all have challenges. And one of the things that happens with multiple sclerosis is that you might look normal from the outside. People would not know that you would have a disability, but there would be specific things that you would need in order to help you out and to make sure that you have the same shot as other students do within the classroom. So I had dropped into the chat the UDL framework, which I referenced before, and Dr. Amy had referenced as well. Any of us that come from instructional design or instructional technology, that's where we really start. And that framework talks about how you can support the unique needs of each of your students, but it gives your students the ability to let you know how they best prefer to learn and the specific things that they need in order to be successful. The other thing too that's really beautiful about it is that even if you have a disability or a challenge in one area, you might actually be a leader and somebody that can mentor other students in other areas too. So we're looking at building a classroom where we're all helping each other, we're supporting folks, in certain areas that maybe we really excel in, and we're taking help from others, with the faculty member being the person to help make those connections and those linkages and help to support those connections happening. So yes, and I do want to hold you to telling your story too, Dr. Priya, because it's one of my favorite stories as well.
Exactly, and I'm going to defer to Dr. Priya to hear your story. I don't think I can add to what Angela just shared. I can't add any additional information. So I want to hear what you have to say.
Yes, thank you. So, well, Gallup Strength says that my top strength is learning ability. So I learn very fast and I can join the dots. And today in one of the sessions, in fact, 2 sessions before, a gentleman, an expert, he said that you know that your talent has become strength when you get compliments on that particular activity. And it just took me back when I was a teenager, and I always knew I wanted to become a teacher, because the moment I teach, something transformed in the learner, and it was empowering and it was enabling, and I somewhere early I knew that I could teach. Emmy, thank you for introducing me to HBO sector, and Angela, whom I met just last year in December, and you introduced to me how much the world can become inclusive and equitable with the use of online platform. I'm a huge lover of people. I like to see potential in every person. We live in a community, and there's a reason why we are called social animal. Each one of us is gifted. It's like that matchstick which gets burned only when there is a friction. That's why life has friction. Every friction ignites that potential and it shines above. I had a very personal tragedy in my life 50 days ago, and tomorrow that tragedy will be, it will be 50 days after that tragedy. I'm not going to tell anyone right here that, but how much learning and being in presence of people who are ready to offer what they have can do to heal somebody's tragic moment. I am a witness of that. I am a person who has experienced that. And that is what online education or online learning should pay way to, whether it is a university setup or whether it is an EdTech setup, or it's a TikTok or a Snapchat or a WhatsApp, whatever be the media. If you are a curious learner, you can learn from even the dried up leaf that has fallen down, or a cloud in the sky, or the person who's a stranger sitting beside you alongside a train journey or a bus journey. information will not bring out change. It is education, because education is transformative. Your attitude changes, and attitude changes because your thoughts change, and thoughts change because your heart changes. The moment there is a desire in the heart, that converts into a thought, and thought becomes an idea, and idea becomes the activity. This idea of having a marathon conference was lying with me for at least 3 years, and it gives me a personal satisfaction that yes, it is possible. But feedback is most welcome. It was a delight and an honor for me as Director Academics, Amity University Online, to lead this marathon organization. I would do injustice if I don't say thank you to the entire academic team, SRM team, IT team, marketing team, finance team, HR team, the entire team, and Amity University team, because no flight takes off without the foundation, without the ground. This ground was created 30 years ago, and look how much more needs to be done, because there are still a large section of people who need to be enlightened. So we are all belonging to one tribe, and that tribe is educating and empowering the citizens of future world. So with that note, let me conclude this marathon first virtual conference of Amity University Online. Thank you. This will be an annual affair. We will see you after almost a year. Thank you. Tata, good night, and God bless each one of you.